Let's bring back a good friend of this program, Middle Eastern expert Dr. Walid Phares, who joins us by phone. Walid, Islamophobia, is that really a root cause of this?
JD, let me try this. Yes, Islamophobia could be a reason, but guess what? The Muslim Brotherhood are producing Islamophobia. The Iranian lobby, the Salafists are producing the Islamophobia as an argument for not dismantling the network of the jihadists. This is a shield that the Islamist lobby is using. Every time there's an investigation into jihadist activities, every time there's an attempt to understand the ideology, what is the shield? What is the argument? Oh, you can't do that. That would become Islamophobia. We all have been accused of Islamophobia. If we criticize, it has nothing to do with Islam in the community. If we criticize the ideology which is behind them, and it is very sad and frustrating to see that many apologists in the West, including in the United States, are espousing this argument instead of educating the public about reality, that there are ideological roots to this problem.
And this whole notion of the adherents of Islam being victims, it's kind of interesting. Walid, yesterday, the Islamic activist Anhem Chandri was on Newsmax TV with our own Steve Malzberg, and there was a very interesting exchange here. Prior to going on the air, Chowdhury had what he thought was a very important question for Mr. Malzberg. Let's go back to that scene as it unfolded yesterday here on Newsmax TV.
I just want to make clear, I mean, you asked before we went on air, you said my name sounded Jewish, and I told you it was. I mean, is that problematic for you in any way?
No, it just makes me understand the reality of the people that I'm dealing with.
Now, Chowdhury followed that with saying that he would, quote, invite Steve to Islam. Your take on Chowdhury and others like him, are they radicals who, in fact, are preaching the doctrine of acts of terror against Western democracies such as France and Great Britain, where Chowdhury resides? My
friend, this is probably the easiest answer. Mr. Chowdhury, and he's not shy about it, is not just a Islamist, a radical Islamist. He is a jihadist. He is not shy about it. If you go back to many statements he made, to many speeches he made, he actually espouses the absolute same goals of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, of Al-Qaeda, of Boko Haram, which, by the way, within the past 48 hours has killed 1,000 Africans, most of whom were Muslims. So Mr. Chowdhury is playing the game of propaganda. In fact, he's just a jihadist propagandist. That's very simple. Doesn't need even research.
A minute remains in this segment, Walid. I'm interested in your assessment. Far from being Islamophobia, there's been criticism of the French for being too lenient toward those who would perpetrate terror, with shortened prison sentences and, well, we see any number of these people they knew about at large. Your take on the French posture in terms of fighting Islamofascism?
I have been speaking with French lawmakers, decision makers, even the top experts, some of whom have expressed their opinion on TV over the past 3 days or 2 days. Look, French police, law enforcement, counter-terrorism are very good agencies that work hard. Their problem is not their own activity. It's the political establishment in France, and more specifically the intelligentsia, the intellectual elite. They don't want to admit that France has a jihadi problem. It's not an Islamophobia problem. France has a jihadi problem. And as long as you do not address it, identify it, you're going to fall into the problems. And now the French public is realizing how deep is that problem. It's not anymore violence. It's military activities by jihadi units, as we saw yesterday, and we may see even more of that.
Fair enough. Walid, I'll have to hold you right there. We'll have more with Walid Phares following this on America's Forum. Let's continue our conversation with Middle East expert Dr. Walid Phares as these stories continue to develop in France. Not one, but two hostage situations, one involving the brothers, the Kouachi brothers, believed to have attacked that French satirical publication earlier this week, leaving a dozen dead, and the other situation unfolding yet today in eastern Paris at a kosher market there. Walid, we were talking earlier, and as we were heading into the break, sounded to me as if you were accurately describing what I would call the paralysis of being politically correct. The notion that elites and so-called sophisticates easily are entrapped by the notion of Islamophobia, when instead what we are seeing in Western democracies, and certainly in Western Europe, is the growth of jihadism. How serious is the paralysis of the politically correct?
It's very serious. I have published several books on this, Congressman, since 2005. One was Future Jihad, the other was The War of Ideas. And all of these books have shown the readers and the public and many members in Congress and the European Parliament that it is a systematic elimination of our knowledge of the foe. So it all begins with petrodollars decades ago being invested on campuses so that there will be a study of the region from the prism that is very sympathetic to the Islamists and to the jihadists. So now you have hundreds and hundreds of advisors, of academic intellectuals who are framing the debate with the executive branches mostly, more so than with Congress, with media. So now this elite is blocking the governments, various governments, from understanding what the threat is, diverting them into other issues such as, oh, they don't have jobs. What do you mean they don't have jobs? In England, there were 45 medical doctors who makes a lot of money who were involved in these kind of jihadi activities. The donors are very rich. So it's not about economics, it's about an ideology. So yes, our governments have been submitted to an influence by an organized lobby to take away, to derail our national security analysis. And I hope that the next Congress here, the next European Parliament in Europe will address this issue very seriously.
And you mentioned the Congress and the European Parliament, but in the executive branch here in the United States, President Obama, suffice it to say, has a very different posture, it would seem, from his predecessors. What should President Obama be doing now, and do you think he will take some action to prevent these kinds of attacks here?
Well, his position is different, not just from the Republican predecessor, but also from the Democrat and Republican predecessors, all of them combined. The problem is that this administration, the president, are receiving a perspective and analysis and advice from a whole pyramid of advisors who are advising that we should not engage in a confrontation with the jihadists. We should make concessions. We should strike a deal with Iran. We should withdraw from the region. We should not strike at Assad. We should be the partners of the Muslim Brotherhood. So, Congressman, it's not just about few incidents, about policy. What to do? The president needs to start changing his policy, and Congress needs to convince him. Now there's a right equation between a new majority in Congress and the administration. They need each other if they want to fight the threat. So they need to find a new policy.
Walid, 45 seconds remain. Is it fair, is it accurate to describe the Obama policy as one of appeasement?
It is one of appeasement, but one that thinks that it is right. It's not just, let's do appeasement because we don't want to go into a complicated world. They actually think that they are solving the issue. Their reading of the results on the ground in the region and now across the Atlantic is wrong, and it needs to be corrected, and to be corrected on a strategic level.
Middle Eastern expert Walid Phares, we thank you for your time and your insights. We would point out that the video we were showing there just a second ago was of President Obama signing a book of condolence at the French Embassy in Washington, D.C. This story continues to develop, or these stories, and we'll continue to follow them as America's Forum continues here on Newsmax TV.